But today in Washington, D.C., the Secret Service is still conducting that investigation into the cocaine found at the White House. Now, Politico reporting this, the culprit, according to one official familiar with the probe, is unlikely to be found. Why? Because they say it was discovered in a highly trafficked area of the West Wing. And of course, yesterday at the White House press briefing, as we thought would happen, Karine Jean-Pierre refused to go into details when asked about the cocaine discovery. For more on what she had to say, the spin happening there, and also the latest on the investigation, let's get you right out to our chief White House correspondent, James Rosen. Hi, James. Good afternoon.
Bianca, good afternoon to you. The fact that this story broke over the long holiday weekend afforded the White House more time than it would ordinarily have enjoyed to frame its response to this most extraordinary of discoveries, what is, after all, a Schedule II drug under the Controlled Substances Act, right there in the West Wing lobby, right off West Executive Avenue. So here then is the sum total of what Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, came to yesterday's briefing prepared to say about this incident.
Where this was discovered is a heavily traveled area where many White House, West Wing, I should be even more specific, West Wing visitors come through this particular area. I just don't have anything more to share. It is under investigation by the Secret Service. As you all know, the president follows all the reporting here, and he certainly was briefed by his staff on everything that we know so far. The president thinks it's very important to get to the bottom of this. That's why Secret Service, which is under their purview, is looking into this, and they're going to look into what happened this weekend. So the president thinks it is incredibly important to get to the bottom of this.
So, as you saw, the White House press operation, no doubt in consultation with the White House counsel's office, opted for a minimalist approach. There was, however, one other point that Jean-Pierre wanted us all to know, namely that the president and the First Lady and, quote, their family were all out of town when all this went down. Bianca.
James Rosen live at the White House. James, good to see you. Appreciate that update. Well, joining us now to discuss this and some other developing news today, former U.S. Ambassador to Germany and former Director of National Intelligence, Ric Grenell. Ric, good afternoon.
Nice to see you, Bianca.
Great to see you. So a note there that, yes, they were not at the White House when it was discovered, but I'd like to put up the video of all of them enjoying the festivities on the 4th there. We see Hunter right there on the patio getting a lot of play on social media, as well as, you know, we're talking about cocaine at the West Wing. We know the president's son is a recovering addict. What's playing out here? What do you think is really behind this?
Well, true to form in Washington, D.C. is the death of common sense. When you find cocaine at the White House and the son of the president is got probably 100 pictures of cocaine and meth use, you would think that if you were using common sense, that you would go ask him and say, is this yours? It was in a private place. It's very difficult to bring cocaine or drugs or any type of illegal substances into the White House because you're searched. I would go so far, Bianca, as to say that the cocaine has to be either from a Biden family member or a cabinet secretary. Those are the only people that are not searched completely. And so the cabinet officials should all be asked, was the cocaine yours? When did you last visit? And the family members should be asked, because this problem can easily be solved. There are cameras everywhere. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the death of common sense to somehow say that we can't figure out who brought cocaine into the White House.
Yeah, and the heavily trafficked talking point is a little bit ridiculous as well. We're not talking about a shopping mall here. This, as you mentioned, is you know, the White House, where they know who's coming in. There could be fingerprints on the baggie, and we're not even, you know, privy to everything going on. So we'll leave that aside, but I also want to get your reaction to how you think our allies, our enemies are reacting to this story and the headlines coming out of this cocaine discovery, Ric.
I mean, look, they've seen this White House really give talking points constantly that America has a terrible record on human rights. You see the BLM talking points constantly. The Chinese have used those talking points against us. And now all of these woke policies, the lack of law and order in the United States, the fact that the Secretary of State for the United States was trying to manipulate an election 3 weeks before a presidential election by pushing this phony Russian narrative on Hunter Biden's laptop. Our enemies and others around the world see what is happening to the Democratic Party, and they're scared, because most people who understand the world will say, if the United States falls, where do we go? What other place is going to be fighting for capitalism, the rule of law, democracy, and common sense? I think what's emerging over this last 3 years is the death of common sense within the Democratic Party. We have a Supreme Court justice and a vice president of the United States, both who are in agreement that they don't know what a woman is. And so this is something that if you would have told me 3 or 4 years ago was going to happen, I would have thought that you were crazy and should be put in a mental institution. But now the Supreme Court justice of the United States of America literally is proud of the fact that she is not a biologist, so therefore can't determine what a woman is. This is the death of common sense in Washington, D.C. Everybody's going along with it in Washington, D.C. The emperor has no clothes and no one will say it.
Yeah, it is astounding. The things that we hear coming out of our own mouths, you can't even believe it. But here we are reporting on facts like that. Rick, I want to get your reaction to a brand new report out today talking about Russians, ex-U.S. officials that had a secret meeting in New York to discuss Ukraine. It happened in April. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was there. He was also in New York to chair the UN Security Council at the time. Now, NBC sources are saying they discussed the fate of diplomatic solution for Ukraine that both sides could approve. Sources are telling NBC the Biden administration is aware of the talks but has not been directing them, which we know. You know some of the players, obviously, as a former diplomat yourself. What do you make of this? Is this pretty usual? And does perhaps also the Wagner revolt change any progress that could have been made back in April?
Yeah, this story is so interesting. It's coming from NBC reporter, and you know, the reality, here's the headline on the reality, is that the Council on Foreign Relations met with the Russians. That's all this is. It's crazy to think that somehow this is peace talks. Certainly the Council on Foreign Relations, which is an organization that is steeped in Washington, D.C. rhetoric. They've been on the wrong side of many issues. It's just an NGO that really placates the Washington, D.C. atmosphere of pro-war. But the fact that they met with the Russians when the Russians were the president of the Security Council is, you know, pretty typical. I don't find it to be anything that interesting. This meeting took place in April. We never really heard anything about it. We certainly don't know what the Biden administration is doing for peace talks. We know that China has a peace plan, which is pretty decent, actually, so, a place that we should start. It's not perfect, but it does talk about territorial integrity. And I do think that we should pick up on the Minsk agreements, which were never really pushed very hard by Chancellor Merkel. But Minsk has some basic ideas of how a peace plan could be put together. The State Department needs to step up and do it themselves, not ask some other NGO to do it.
Well, clearly, while there is talk about more munitions being sent over to Ukraine, a lot of people would look for more diplomatic off-ramps. And again, none, like you said, is really being pushed by this administration. Ambassador Grenell, wish we had more time. Got to leave it there.
All the best, Bianca.
Thanks, Rick. See you soon.